Hi folks, Lou here, and I'm going to answer a question that I saw on Quora that, while it's an historical question, is also important for game design because World War II is the most popular subject for war games. And so there are a lot of World War II games or partial World War II games, as the case may be, focusing on part of the war. And so this is relevant to game design. The question was, quote, why did Germany lose World War II? If they won a few battles, would that have changed anything significantly? Unquote. Well, the first thing to notice is that in modern wars, long wars are economic. A short war may not be. A short war may be primarily about the military that each nation has at the start of the war. But a long war is economic because your economy more or less equates to your warfighting ability, how much you can build in the way of tanks and planes and ships and so forth. So the stronger economy is going to win in the long run in almost every case. And once the USA entered World War II, Germany had essentially no chance because the United States had a much stronger economy than any other country in the world. In fact, one historian calculated that the United States before World War II, and I don't remember whether that's 1939 or 1941, had 41% of the world's capacity to build war-making equipment. One country, 41%, and no other country was anywhere near. So having the United States on the other side was going to doom you unless you could win the war before the United States really kicked in, its capabilities kicked in. Now, what's the strategy of the countries that expect to have the smaller economies in the long run? Well, they want to keep the strong neutrals out of the war, the United States, for example, and they want to use a stronger military at the start of the war to defeat the enemy before the stronger economy can kick in. And that's what Germany did. That can happen through taking somebody out of the war, like France, but also through using the economic capacity of the countries that you conquer, again, like France. But Germany made a huge mistake by attacking Russia before they had taken Britain out of the war. Now, keep in mind, there was never any real chance that Germany could invade Britain. The British Navy was too strong. The task was too difficult. Germany was not going to invade Britain successfully. They weren't going to invade them all. They made some preparations and realized this isn't going to work. The Battle of Britain was working pretty well when the Germans changed their strategy, which was a mistake. But even then, it's very unlikely that Britain would have surrendered to the Germans because Winston Churchill, who was prime minister by that time, was confident that in God's good time, I don't remember the exact quote, the people of the new hemisphere would come and rescue the people of the old. And he was right. But Russia was very important. Russia had a strong economy. Russia had a lot of people at that time, far more than they have today, of course, because they controlled half of Poland and then the Baltic countries and Ukraine and so on and so forth. Now, why did the Germans attack Russia? Well, that was always Hitler's aim. In Mein Kampf, which he was published in 1925, he said, Germany needs Lebensraum, which is living space, and that was going to come from Slavic countries, which is to say Poland and Russia in particular. So if Germany had not invaded Russia, they would have been much better off. However, I get the impression the Russians were intending to attack Germany. So who knows what would have happened in the long run in that situation. What the Germans could have done, of course, is put a lot more force into Africa, which was a minuscule force compared to what they used to invade Germany, and they would have beaten the British, and they would have taken Egypt, and they would have taken the Middle East, and they would have had the oil from the Middle East, which was their Achilles heel, and they possibly could have gone as far as India. But certainly they have been much better off. Now, what about Japan? Since we're talking about this, the Japanese thought that they could make a surprise attack on the United States, and that the will of the United States to defeat Japan would finally wane and Japan would succeed. But they didn't understand Americans apparently, because once the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, there were an awful lot of Americans who were ready to level Japan as long as it took to do so. And so the Japanese had no hope because the United States was a much stronger power. Even though the United States decided that Germany was the more important power to defeat, they were still able to overwhelm the Japanese pretty quickly. So you could say German impatience doomed them, and the Japanese were stuck in a situation where they'd got themselves in a war with China. They needed oil. The oil was being cut off. What could they do? Well, they made a choice, but it was a big mistake. Now, could nuclear weapons have made a difference? Hard to say, but the Allies made sure to destroy German nuclear research facilities, which were in Norway, so that that wouldn't happen. The question says, what if they'd won a few battles? Well, you don't really have individual battles, particularly in a war of this scale. I mean, the Battle of the Bulge, yes, but still you have big trends that happen and continue to happen, rather than individual battles that make a big difference. So maybe if the Germans had done a little better in Africa or done a little better at certain places in Russia, but we don't know. They won the important battles early on, as in the Battle of France, but still they lost the war, and essentially they were doomed to lose the war. Thanks for listening.